Welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by HAYVN, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. I am Nancy Sheed, your host, and we are pulling a first ever recording, first ever feat, and speaking not with one, not with two, not with three, but with four fantastic female founders from Realist Lab. And we're going to hear more about what Realist Lab is, but I'm going to let this wonderful team introduce themselves first. Marie, welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast.
Thank you for having us. I'm so excited to be here. Finally, it's been, a couple of years, but we now have something interesting to share. So I think that's why Christine and I held out for quite a bit.
No worries. And I'm going to start again, Marie Rocha, right? And now we're going to hear from Christine Sullivan. Hi, Christine.
Hi, everybody. Super happy to be here. And as echo what Marie said, we've been waiting a long time, but this is an exciting time for us.
Going around the room, Joana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Joana Smith. I'm an investor at Realist Ventures with Marie, but I'm also a vice president of Realist Lab. It's nice. Thank you for having us.
Oh, I'm so excited. And Isis.
Hi, I am Isis-Rae Goulbourne, and I am the CMO here at Realist Lab, and I'm so excited to be on this call with you guys today.
Thank you all for being here, and technology is working so far. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the recently launched Realist Lab, it's a tech incubator that provides aspiring business owners with the necessary funding, technology resources, and practical tools to scale their ventures. And so I'm very eager to dive into what Realist does, how it came to be. But before we do that, I'd love literally just to hear from each of you, because from your bios, you have different yet very complementary skill sets of the path that led you to coming together with this opportunity and this adventure. Marie, I'll start with you.
Sure. So as Joanna mentioned, I have a fund as well, Realist Ventures. I think I met Felicia way before she even had the decks together for HAYVN Hatch. We were the only two women at an event, naturally just started talking. And I believe a week after, I went to a pitch competition for women. Well, it wasn't for women, it was just a pitch competition. And I hated the way the women were spoken to in that room. I called her the next day and I asked her if she'd be open to hosting pitch for women and I think we were going for a dolphin shark kind of vibe where It wasn't so toxic and aggressive. And then shortly after that, I met Christine, who was also helping Felicia with funding and getting her deck and a business plan together. And the rest basically is how HAYVN launch was started. Christine and I, we both felt that we could do so much more beyond just women pitching for funding and connection and customers, and talked about what that looked like. And then HAYVN launch was created. I'm sorry, HAYVN Hatch didn't launch. Sorry. So many HAYVN. And again, the frustration kept happening. We were like, okay, great. These women are pitching, but we have people who had gone through our incubators and we're still trying to get funding. We're still trying to get their initial products to market. And then by some crazy moment, I think we thought, let's go for what Realist Lab could be. And it could be an incubator that helps, founders build their businesses and learn the proper path for, either go-to-market strategy and all of that, cover all the topics, and then help them build. And luckily for us, we were able to take advantage of an opportunity for an RFP that the state put out. And that's how Realist Lab was initially funded. And we've been going since February.
Congratulations. That's so exciting. Christine, how does the work you're doing or that you're bringing to Realist Lab differ from what you were doing before. I know you've always been passionate about helping people move forward and get their financial straight or get their story straight or their deck straight. How has this evolved for you?
It's interesting because just before this call, when you were saying, did you imagine doing this when you were 12? And my initial reaction in my head was like, definitely not. I had no idea what I was wanting to do when I was 12. But I will say, my dad was an actuary, so very data driven, and my mom was a social worker, so we always had to be helping people. And then I became an investment banker, but somehow I was the investment banker that the clients would ask the questions they were too embarrassed to ask anybody else. And I realized that was really a skill I had, is making people comfortable, having them tell their investor story. And when I met Marie, it was a moment for me when I realized, the data out there, in 2022, there was about $235 billion were invested in venture, by venture capitalists. And of that, 4 billion were to women-led companies. And I realized that in my career, I had never had a female client as an investment banker. So there's white space to move into for me. And, working with Marie has been that, which has been great.
I love that part of your journey. Just kind of, again, going around my virtual Zoom room right this minute. Joana, you have been working in the venture world. Can you share with us your journey into the lab space?
Sure. It actually started in the venture world as a founder. My background is primarily in finance. I was a wealth manager, commodities trade desk analyst, and a partner at a hedge fund. But I transitioned into technology wanting to be a founder, and I was able to do that with a scholarship from Google as a front-end engineer and a product manager. This was actually around the time where I first met Marie, and you'll see later where the HAYVN thread ties us together. But as a founder, Marie was giving me advice, and she was so helpful and so generous with her guidance that I thought if she needed any help with her fund and raising capital, I might as well help her as well. So I volunteered to do that, and that's how I started working at Realist Ventures.
I love that. There's so many so many connections here I want to dive into. And Isis, you come in with the marketing arm. I mean, and not that you don't have the financial background and knowledge, but that's a different viewpoint in thinking about what's going on. How did you come into the Realist Lab world in your marketing capacity?
So I am the last one to join the squad. Marie and I met, I think, about maybe a little under a year ago. We are, in a lot of the same spaces together, and we just connected over just our love for community and the projects that Marie was working on, and some similar spaces that I was in just kept intersecting. And I joined Realist from my vantage point of that community connector lens and my ability to tell great stories. So the work that I do with Realist holds a dear space in my heart because she is working so hard to push founders and entrepreneurs and build this ecosystem. And I am at the foundation of everything I do about building these community ecosystems. So it was just a perfect match, and we haven't looked back since.
I love it. And so each of you have all had your own perspectives at building communities or helping people build businesses or founding your own businesses. I have to ask the question, how does that mean you were experts at instantly bringing Realist Lab to life? What did you bring and what have you learned in sort of founding this sort of the lab together? I'd like to assume no mistakes were made and everybody said, I know exactly how it's going to go. But in addition to all the expertise you brought, can you share with listeners sort of what came into the actual founding? I mean, I can remember seeing on LinkedIn, like, we're up, we're live. It was so exciting. But a lot had to go into that happening. I'm looking at Marie's face, so I'll go with you first, Marie. Anybody else can raise their hand if they want to add in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for a really long time. My first business was at 19, which started by accident. And then I moved to Connecticut about 13 years ago. And I always joke that I'm always too early. Like I was doing the sustainable e-commerce jewelry business with a neighbor and we were killing it, but we were so early because sustainability was just like new for a lot of people and the cost to maintain that business was difficult. And I think for us, what I love about this team is that we're patient, very patient. We started this process of what Realist Lab would look like 3 years ago. And most people don't realize. And I think our journey, I'm excited to tell more founders this because they think this just came together and we just have this fabulous team. But it took us a really long time to fundraise for it. It took us an even longer time to articulate it to potential shareholders or stakeholders or, donors who didn't really think there's a need for this. When you think about building a company, most of the guys who do this, they're like have their uncles and brother and father who can kind of pave the way. I'm the only entrepreneur in my family. They're still thinking I need to get a real job and so when it comes to any of this, I have no mentor. I have no one, I think that's the beauty in what we're doing. Isis is also an entrepreneur. So we all kind of come at this from that same lens, not only the grit you have to channel as a founder, but also the process of fundraising and all of it. And for us, this has been a really long journey. I think, Nancy, we talked about getting on the podcast like two years ago.
I'm persistent. I'm patient. I'm patient.
No, but we were waiting for funding. So we sort of like kept pushing everything back. But it's, now that it's launched and, our founders just sort of graduated to the first batch. We had our demo day 2 weeks ago and we're finally like celebrating it. But it's been a really long journey so far.
Yeah.
Isis, love to hear from you.
I will say that one thing that I think Realist Lab is really good at, and I will 100% give this up to Marie every time, is putting people in place that specialize in a thing. And I think that a lot of times founders will try to do everything, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think as we go around this table, and Marie, Christine, Joana, and myself, and there's a few people that aren't on this call, Max, is that we are all good in our areas, and then we're able to collaborate to build something great together. And I think that that is a true testament to the leadership of Realist to be able to identify those spaces and then put the expertise in place. That cannot be understated, and it's happening here. It's great.
Thank you for calling that, Isis, because I was going to turn to you, Christine. I sort of saw you as a solo advisor, who would help people. And I'm curious about your experience in coming into a team and doing this sort of from a team approach. What experience can you share with us on that?
Well, it's funny. When Marie and I started doing HAYVN Launch, which was sort of the incubator V1, it was the first time I'd really co-run, a program like that. And what was so great is like, I come from a banking background where we're preparing, we have deliverables to complete, we have checklists to do, and Marie comes at it as an investor. And so our two viewpoints were often different. And we got to like live that in real time. But the perspective that the people taking the class got was really holistic. So I would be able to say, like, this is what your deck needs to look like. And Marie would take it apart and say, this is what I think when you tell me that your market size is $4 billion, right? And it just lent this, on a combined basis, it was like there was the magic, right? We were giving people a perspective that they weren't getting from reading what they could download on the internet.
And Joana, you come from that investor world. It's kind of meta for you all too. You've come from the investor side, but also you were then out doing your own fundraising. Is that something that you've been on both sides before, or was that a first for you?
Yes, actually, I've had to fundraise for the hedge fund before. So from that perspective, I am familiar. I actually think the team is way too humble. and they don't boast about themselves enough, so I'm going to do it for them. Marie stated that her career started at the age of 19, but she did not share that she's a self-taught software engineer, and she sold her first software company at the age of 19. Christine is also an adjunct professor at UConn. So she is like one of the best teachers that you could ever learn from a curricular perspective. And Isis is just like multi-talented. Anything you hand over to her. She also has copywriting background, UI background, recruiting background. She has a significant resume. I'm going to pause my feed a little bit because the feedback's really bad. But Isis has a significant background, very multifarious amount of skills that would, honestly, if you put anything in front of her, she would just succeed, regardless of whether it's marketing or implementing her own company or bringing an event to life, to fruition, or I don't know, even bringing Realist Lab to life as a CMO. So I can say that in working with Marie at the VC, we definitely wanted to help everyone. That is just our natural empathetic nature. And we were finding that we didn't have the capacity to do so with the limitations of the traditional venture capital model. And I felt like Realist Lab is something that both her and Marie and Christine envisioned as an extension, a nonprofit extension of the fund because of the work that they've done with HAYVN. So combining the curriculum that they started with HAYVN launch and adding the technological aspect, I also didn't share that I'm also a product manager for MasterCard. We've created Realist Lab to provide this core business curriculum and provide technological resources where our director of engineering, Max, leads building out minimum viable products for our founders so they can successfully launch and scale their software businesses. So I think those are the significant differentiators for our program and the reasons why we're so strong in what we do. In terms of specific skills that I have that might have lent to this is the fact that at the hedge fund and as a management consultant, I've had experience in submitting RFPs for other clients like CalPERS and the state of New York and New Jersey for funding. So I think that that's what helped with my contribution as well as to the product management side and helping the founders navigate how to distill their minimum viable products to launch.
I think I'm going to do more interviews with 4 people because I get so much more information than I would have gotten if it were just me. Thank you, Joanna. I really appreciate it. And that's a nice segue in terms of, I have interviewed people on this podcast or on, who went through the launch program. And the recurring thing that they all shared was, in addition to how the advice and the expertise, was the community and the camaraderie. That was really as equally as important to them, that they didn't feel alone in going through this process by themselves. And so I love, Joanna, that you've shared, here's technically the bullet point of all that we do, but I think there's this huge gift that you're also bringing in terms of that community that's probably more qualitative than quantitative. And Marie, you said you and Felicia were the only ones in the room at a time. Are you changing that dynamic in terms of what this community looks like?
Not at all. We're in fact growing it. Christine and I, we attend a lot of entrepreneurship events, and we get so excited when we run into a founder that's been through our program. And I'll say this, Wendy's a perfect example of that. She reached out to both Christine and I. She was presenting a couple of months ago. She's like, I don't know if you're both free, but if you happen to be, I could use a friendly face. And I pulled in, it just warmed my heart to see Christine there and just as a community there to support her. Our goal is to continue that. And even within our current cohort, they're already collaborating. They're each other's customers. They're growing together. And so that's what we want to do. I mean, in the perfect world, Joanna and I have even dreamed of, having founders tech houses where we're like bringing these founders together and really working through weekends and wellness and all of it. But until we get there, we'll keep it at Slack, where we continue to nurture this community and support them through and through. And I think I still speak to founders from the first hatch, which was 12 or 14 HAYVN hatch ago. And I will continue to do that. I think that's our secret sauce. We want to be accessible and very much continue to nurture a group of people who are traditionally overlooked.
And I think I would build on that or ask another question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Isis.
I was just going to hop on the train of what Joanna and Marie just said. And as we think, as the resident storyteller in the room, as we think about what Realist is really pouring into people and founders. And a lot of people spend a lot of time on the investment side looking for investment, looking for people to invest in their ideas and their businesses. And I think the difference between Realist and Realist Ventures or any other venture firm is that Realist Lab is really focused on investing in the people. It's investing and pouring into the founders themselves to build and to grow them and their foundation and their community and the ground that they stand on so that they can be attractive further down the line and de-risked on the investment of their actual ideas. So I think it's just a really beautiful touch point to keep in mind about the crux of what Realist is doing here. And it's wonderful.
In terms of kind of literally what's going on at Realist right now and what we're looking toward, you've alluded to a cohort. So can you walk us through? I know you just had a big sort of event in the past. It might be a few weeks before this airs, but you've had a current cohort go through, and I know you're looking towards another one. Can you walk us through sort of some ideas of the types of companies, just to give listeners an idea of who's an ideal sort of participant at Realist Lab? Christine?
So we just finished our first cohort. We have 3 phases, and the first phase is a 12-week program. And what we're really looking for is entrepreneurs who have an idea that can be assisted by technology for growth and scale. So high growth companies. We have in our first cohort of 10, we had some who were in the ideation phase and used the program to help them scope out what would work and what wouldn't. We had others who have a fully functional product but no customers. So how do we figure that out? And the programming goes from, everything of how do we create the deliverables that investors are looking for and how do we do the work that's behind that? Though I will say, to a point you made earlier, a good chunk of the program, and somebody in the cohort mentioned this, some of it is building confidence because we always do have people who are smart enough to look on the internet and see what a pitch deck should look like, create their 12 slides, and they show up not knowing who to ask for investment because, women and minorities don't have the same friends and family that can write a big check to get them off the ground. So how do you develop a network? So those kind of less tangible deliverables are what we spend a lot of time doing with them. Then I'm going to pass it over to Joanna, who manages and runs the phase 2, which is really, I think, when we look at our offering is the really innovative part of this because we're actually going to help people move forward in building their technology.
So in phase 2, the first and foremost, the objective is to ensure that the founders have a fundamental knowledge of how software works so that in an instance where we don't select them as candidates to build out their MVPs, they would be knowledgeable in learning how to lead a software initiative with engineers from an external software development company. We just want to ensure that they're not being taken advantage of because they know what's actually going on in the implementation of their products. The second thing that we like to do is introduce the idea of a product roadmap where a founder will be able to validate their market and ensure that there are different iterations of their program that'll allow them to de-risk their product for future investment. So that's the idea. And then based on that assessment and that work that we do there, we then hand over our selected candidates to our director of engineering, who will build out their minimal viable products and will also assist in launching them for the founders. So that's essentially what happens.
And thank you for clarifying MVP for those that are not well-versed in your world. I appreciate the explaining of the jargon for people who might be new to this road. So this group is sort of moving into their next phase, or we won't say graduating, right? But obviously with different levels of next stage. And from what I understand, walk through, you're about to start another cohort, and applications by the time this airs will be available. If somebody's listening, like, how do I know if I qualify? What do they need to know to qualify for sort of consideration in Realist Lab?
I would say just go to our website, realistlab.org. There's an apply now. It couldn't be easier. And have a conversation.
Okay.
Because not only do we want to talk to you about what your goals are and hope you're a fit, but if you're not, we're really become very well resourced with who else can be helpful in moving your dream along. I
love that. So any stage, any size, it doesn't have to be a perfect income target or investment target or anything else. That's very, very helpful, Christine. We've touched upon the HAYVN connection and sort of how, HAYVN is what brings us all here today. And it's probably how I've gotten to know all of you all, either through Hatch or Launch or other things. If you don't mind, I'd love to sort of go around the room. And because Joanna, you said there's another tie here we haven't even heard about. Your experience with HAYVN, and I know you've all contributed to HAYVN and sort of the impact HAYVN has had on you, because it's hard for me to imagine the world before HAYVN. I certainly wouldn't know all of you for that. But Joanna, can we hear your story about before you knew this crew?
Oh, I actually wouldn't know about HAYVN without this crew.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So when I was going through my quarter life crisis at the hedge fund, I felt like I needed to start creating things instead of making money for the sake of money. I wanted to be a founder at one point. That startup has since been defunct because of family obligations of my co-founders. We're still good friends to this day. They're still willing to actually help out at Realist Lab. They're just software engineers at enterprise companies at this point. But when I met Marie, she was a panelist at a founder event that I was trying to network in. And we just glommed on together because at that time I was living in Stanford. And she was just making a lot of recommendations on how I can move forward with my business. But then she also recommended that I present at HAYVN Hatch, right, Christine?
Yes.
So I actually was one of the contestants. I did not win. I lost to, I think it was a product. We were building an AI email software product at the time, but we lost to, I think, a bag company. It was like a clear plastic transparent bag company. The mother had a really like captive audience, and she has wonderful story to tell. So I'm not upset at losing to her at all. She was amazing. But that's actually how I know about HAYVN. So HAYVN actually helped me via Marie and Christine introducing me to there. But then that's actually what ties me together to HAYVN, like ties me to HAYVN.
I love it. And Isis, I know you've been a panelist, you've been a judge or on the panel of judges for HAYVN Hatch. Marie, I know both you and Christine have. And again, you did HAYVN Launch. And I love the energy and synergy that HAYVN brings. What's the one thing that kind of, and I can say that from all of you, I guess it either surprises you or was not what you expected in terms of where you are now from the time you all met, at your first time, either whether it was HAYVN or not? Christine.
Yeah, it's funny when I haven't thought of this until this conversation, but when I met Felicia, she had a pitch deck for HAYVN. And that was when I met her. And it was wonderful having it come to life and seeing the opening and meeting everybody. But my lens was, helping her with the financial model of how HAYVN was going to work and how to finance the opening. And I had no vision at all into the magic that would happen when people started to work together, which is really, in a way, what we're seeing today in this conversation.
Mm.
So that was a really lovely surprise.
Mine was, I hadn't thought about it either. When I met Felicia, I was just looking for the other woman. I attend a lot of financial and pitch competitions. So I'm always like, okay, is there one other woman here? And that was really it. And little did I know that we would have this sort of entanglement beyond just looking for a friendly face. And even for Isis, I think I met her socially too. It was at a mutual friends, which ironically will end up working with Realist as well. But we met there and, everyone's like, you don't know each other? You must know each other. And we're like, okay, now we do. And that kind of tied us. And as Joana mentioned, I think that's what I love about our team. Everyone really just have such an amazing heart. And sometimes even if it's 3 a.m., we're cranking through some deliverable or whatever that is. I always feel bad, but I know they're like smiling too through the tiredness of the work, because at the core, we really just care about seeing more progress. We all know the stats and they've remained dismal. And, long term, I can't wait till we expand beyond this core group. But yeah, I think it's just been interesting how we all connected because we cared about something and wanted to help or add value to HAYVN. And now we've kind of blossomed out of that into this lab.
I love it. And Isis and Joana, I'd sort of love to hear from you all, as well as and I guess maybe I'll slightly pivot as well as from whence you've come to where you are now to where you're going. I'd love to kind of hear we haven't sort of talked as much about vision, and I'd love to have you all back again. But Isis, what your thoughts as the storyteller who's helping tell the narrative?
I'm just having so much fun with this group. I think where I've seen it, and the group can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people, before the story is told correctly, people just don't get it. And you find teams working on projects and the team gets it, and then they're trying to explain it and they're like, we get it, you should get it too. But I remember sitting on a call with Joana and Marie, and collectively they just like broke it all down to me over like the course of an hour. And after the hour, I was like, oh, so this is what it is, like in a sentence, right? So going out with that lens and coming out with articles and doing events and just seeing it click in the minds of many what we're doing here and why we're doing it, and pulling off flawless events and doing things like Help Fest and having Christine and Marie out there working just as like office hours and not being able to even get up to get a glass of water because it's back to back to back. What's beautiful for me is that the community is finally getting it. And once that takes hold, that's it. There's no going backwards from here. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's just been really beautiful to watch it be cultivated with a purpose and a strategy, and, really have gone from 0 to 100 in a really small time around that like train of thought.
I'm so glad you touched on the community, because I feel like that's also a benchmark of what you're creating for yourselves that didn't exist before. Joana, you've been on both sides of the coin. What's your vision for success, or your vision for sort of what the next steps are for Realist?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think we would all just feel very gratified at the fact that the founders that come out of our program will be able to launch really successful businesses. But outside of that, with all of the events that you hear that Marie constantly attends and networks at, she's actually been to several states now, whether it's New York, Ohio, California, Oklahoma. All of these states are finding, and I think maybe in Portland, they're finding value in the model that we've created with Realist Lab. It's kind of innovative because we're just building out technology for founders. And they're actually looking to scale and partner with us. so that we can implement Realist Lab all over the nation. So ideally, if we're talking about the future, I'd love to see Realist Lab in every state where we can help underrepresented founders successfully launch and scale their businesses at a high level.
Okay, Connecticut is just the beginning. Then we have to come back and learn more from you all, see where you are in a year from now. Thank you all for your time. Thank you all for the work that you're doing and staying up till 3:00 in the morning to get those business founders going. We really appreciate it. And again, Christine, I think you shared it, but will you remind us of the best way to find you on the interwebs?
You can come to our website, which is realistlab.org, and you can learn more about our programs, us, and you can apply to be part of it.
And Isis, those events and all those office hours, that's all on the website as well for people who want to come learn more and see you. And there is a physical space?
So I implore everyone to engage with us on social media. We are posting about Demo Day. All of the links can be found for any given event at any given time on our LinkedIn. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter at Realist Lab. So just hunt us out. We're there. And we love to interact with you on any of those channels.
Thank you, Isis. It was well worth the wait, ladies. I can't thank you enough for your time and your insight and all the work that you're doing. Thank you for your input. And we're going to check back. I'm going to now start stalking you for the next interview a year from now to see what's going on. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for being patient.
Thanks for having us, Nancy. This is great.
Oh, well worth the wait. Well worth the wait. And that's another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. Thank you for listening. And if you like what you hear, give us a review and please be a subscriber. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. HAYVN is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. HAYVN is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the HAYVN community online at hayvn.com. That's HAYVN.com. HAYVN Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.